Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto leaves the village and comes back as the leader of the crisis? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. A young, blonde-haired boy was standing in a large storage room, looking for a large scroll that his sensei said that if he could master a technique from, he could pass the genin exam. He found it easy to sneak past the unnoticing guards, as stealth was second nature to him, as he had to both survive and pull pranks using it. This was his third failed attempt at the exam. Despite what he let on, he wasn't the idiot everyone thought he was. His weakness was that he couldn't control his chakra properly to make bunchins. He hated himself for being weak. All he wanted was to be strong like the old man Hokage and protect the precious people like Iruka and the ramen stand owners Ayame and Tuki. After much searching throughout the many scrolls and boxes, he found what he was looking for. The forbidden scroll. After strapping the large scroll on his back, he turned to leave. The blonde stopped dead in his tracks when he felt a cold feeling push past him. He turned slowly to see what it was, and his eyes gazed at a small scroll lying on the floor. What made it strange was it glowed a dull blue. Curious, the boy walked towards the scroll and knelt to pick it up. What he saw on the lettering that was on the hand-size scroll shocked him to no end. It read, "Property of the Kushina Uzumaki." Flashback. The young blonde sat in his apartment with the small scroll in hand. Only a few minutes ago he was made genin after his sensei's betrayal, but he also found out that he was the vessel of a nine-tailed beast, which he felt greatly upset by. But it was thanks to his other sensei that he managed to defeat the traitorous Chunin. As he read the scroll that he found, his eyes widened in both shock and awe. He believed that what he was reading was only fairy tales, but as he read on, he began to think otherwise. He read on that the Uzumakis were descendants of the mysterious Shadow Queen and also being called the Lich King. It also spoke about the scourge and its role in the world. Lastly, it told the boy about the Lich King's demise against the united races. As he fancied reading about the scourge and its creator, he began to wonder. Would the power still be there? Would those artifacts still be within this place called Northrend? He had to find answers. However, that would have to wait, as the genin team placement were tomorrow. Flashback. The blonde boy walked from the small boat he paid for onto a layer of snow. He was here, the land of the dead, Northrend. It was a very cold, dark and unforgiving place, as the snow looked to endlessly fall from the sky upon the masses of snow. Even though he was wearing winter clothing, the cold breeze easily chilled him to the bone. In his left hand was a simply sword that the old man Hokage gave to him as a parting gift, because if the legends were true, then there was little chance he would survive. Then, he heard a voice. The blonde was on guard, looking for the source. He heard the voice Aegean, but no figure could be seen. The third time he heard the voice, the blonde understood the message. Come. Flashback. The youngster followed the direction of the voice that called to him. For what seemed like miles he walked, endlessly and unhindered by the coldness. As he moved on he could see a structure of some kind. He began to run towards it, but stopped upon seeing what it was. His eyes widened in fear. It looked to be a tall citadel that showed the world how unchanged it was. There was no crack, no dent, no hint of rubble on the ground. The boy only looked on in awe at the size of the building. A loud noise could be heard. The young teen got his sword ready as he heard it getting closer, and closer. Soon, a large figure could be seen in the snow. The boy dropped his sword as he looked on petrified at the beast in front of him. It took on the form of a strange, very large beetle. Its voice was cold and calculating. "So, you have come, boy," it spoke. Said boy no longer looked terrified, but instead, confused. "Me?" he asked. "Yes," it replied, "we all have." At this the ground shook as creatures of death rose from the ground. The boy looked as pale as a ghost as he saw himself surrounded by these undead beings. But then they did something that was completely unexpected. They knelt before him. Go past the doors to this mighty citadel, and claim what is rightfully yours, the beast of a beetle told the bewildered teen. The boy didn't need to be told twice, and walked past the beast, up the large steps, and walked through the giant gate. Flashback. The blonde walked up a large circular stairway, which looked to go on forever, that lead up to the top of the spire. The spire looked to be carved from ice by his design, but the bot didn't ponder on it too long as he finally reached the top. His gaze was fixed upon a throne of ice, and upon it, a helmet of demonic origin. Also upon the throne was a suit of armor, which looked to give off the impression it was made by the Shinigami Itself. Next to the throne was a sword stuck in a slab of ice. The sword was a marvel of a design, and though looked intimidating, the blade looked to be of perfection. He then felt a presence that was coming from the helm. Unconsciously, he walked towards the throne on ice, and with both hands, grasped the helm firmly in his hands. Upon placing the helm upon his head, the boy's destiny would forever change the course of history. Present time, outside Konoha's main entrance. Two guards sit at a desk near the main entrance to the village, both bearing bored looks on their faces. After seeing the daimyos appearing in the village to watch the finals of the Chunin exams, as well as other visitors from all the elemental countries to also watch the finals, everything became quite settled down again. But it was too quiet for the guards' liking. Did you hear that the Kyuubi vessel is in the finals, and he is going to be fighting the Hyuga prodigy? Asked the first guard, trying to strike up a conversation to pass the time. Yeah, replied the second of the two, wanting to reply to also pass the time. I bet that he won't stand a chance against him, they're both too different as levels of power. Hopefully, if we are lucky, the Hyuga will kill him, and that way the demon will be gone forever and all those who died that night will be avenged. It's not that I have a problem with the boy himself, it just because with that beast inside him, I always get the fear of it getting released. The first guard shook his head. I don't think that will happen, the seal on the boy is very powerful, so I don't think it will get out. I have to say though, the boy has a lot of guts to face a Hyuga, there is a chance that he will beat him. At this the second guard laughed loudly at what he thought was a joke. Well, those guts are going to kill him one of these days, but the second guard was silenced suddenly when the temperature dropped dramatically around the entrance, and causing what looked to be snow to appear falling around the main entrance. Then a faint sound of heavy boots could be heard in the distance. The two now literally chilled guards slowly turned their eyes to the entrance, and they could make out a strange figure that looked to be walking towards the entrance. To the two guards the figure looked terrifying, as it was encased in what looked to be metal armor and surrounded in a long, dark blue cape. In his scabbard on his left side of his waist was a runeblade that looked to glowed with a dull blue, and gave off a chilling demonic aura of death. On his head was a spiked helm that made the figure's eyes glow brightly with blue and caused a feeling of a dark, unholy, but also great power. He is basically wearing what the Lich King wears after his merge with Arthas. The figure proceeded to walk through the gates of Konoha, taking no notice of the two frightened guards that were there. One of the guards finally got some courage back, stood up and called out to the figure in dark armor. Excuse me, the guard shouted with a stutter in his voice. The figure stopped, then turned his head to face the guard which called out to him. The guard upon looking into the figure's eyes could only gulp. Yes, the figure asked in a questioning tone. His voice sounded like two merged ones. One of human origin, the other a demonic voice. This voice caused the guards to be filled with even more fear than they already had. May I ask what your business is in Konoha? This question made the figure move to the front of the desk in a flash, scaring the life out of the two guards. One of the guards even fell out of his chair from the fright. Upon a closer inspection they could see the figure looked to be close to at least 6 foot tall. The guards tried to look calm, but failed miserably due to their rising fear. The figure replied in his merged voice. I'm here to participate in the finals of the Chunin exams. At this the guards looked shocked. This thing was to participate in the exams. But weren't all combatants in the stadium already? Could I ask what is why your name is, sir? asked the second guard. At this the figure began to chuckle half-heartedly, which confused the guards considerably. The figure replied to him. Naruto Uzumaki. Stadium. Cage booth. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed for what seemed to be the up-tmth time today, depression stuck onto his old features. The finals were finally here, and even now Naruto was still nowhere to be seen. He had not seen him ever since he came to his office straight after the preliminaries. He though about the situation, the conversation began to recall in his mind. Flashback. Hokage's office. Knock knock. Come in. Hiruzen shouted as he tried to deal with his arch-nemesis, paperwork. Upon hearing the door opening, he looked up to see Naruto walk in the door. He was about to smile when he noticed the boy looking at him with cold, dull eyes and had a serious expression on his face. Something wrong, Naruto? He asked, his voice full of concern. Naruto responded by putting his hand into his left trouser pocket, pulled out a small scroll. Hiruzen easily caught it when it was thrown at his direction. As he read its contents, his eyes widened in both shock and fear. Naruto, said boy merely raised his hand to silence the old man. I understand why you did it, Sarutobi, you don't need to explain yourself. Since you one of the few people who showed me kindness throughout my life, I cannot hate you for something as small as this. But, this isn't the main reason why I am here. At this the Hokage raised an inquisitive brow. May I ask what is the main reason why you came here? I want to leave the village for a while. Hiruzen looked at Naruto strangely, blinking a few times. Of all the things he was expecting, such as training or new justus, this was one request he wasn't on the list. You want to what? Questioned a shocked Hiruzen. Naruto stood in front of him, eyes near enough cold and emotionless. The blonde boy sighed a little as he repeated. I want a pass to leave the village for the month. The Hokage felt like messaging his temples. He was hoping to get the boy to go to the Konoha hot springs and meet his former student, the Sannin Jiraiya the Toad Sage. He had put great hope into thinking he could be trained by him and in turn get stronger for the exams. But looking into Naruto's eyes, he knew practically why he wanted to leave. You want to go to Northrend, don't you? The Hokage asked. The blonde nodded. It's time I got what rightfully belongs to me. The blonde spoke in a dead tone that nearly sent shivers up the Hokage's spine. Flashback end. Hiruzen wondered if it was a good idea to allow Naruto to go to Northrend as he thought back to the meeting. It was known throughout the shinobi world as the land of the dead, and Naruto, if Sarutobi's suspicions were correct, as they usually were, Naruto was descendant of one of the world's most infamous and evil figures in history, the Lich King Arthas Menethil, and one of the most mysterious figures, the Shadow Queen. As he began to ponder more, he now hopes he hasn't unleashed a new evil in the world, for it would be something he would never forgive himself with should it happen. Stadium. Arena. Neji smirked in an arrogant fashion. He saw no sign of Naruto, the dead last. But he could see the other Konoha genin participating in this exam also looking around to see if Naruto would show up. Looks like Naruto dropped out, I should have done that as well. Man, what a drag, Shikamaru thought. It's not like him, I wonder if Naruto is going to show, Shino thought in his mind. Would Neji Hyuga and Naruto Uzumaki stay while the other participants leave the area, stated Genma. The other participants left, leaving only Neji in the arena. Neji decided to verbally insult Naruto by shouting towards the audience. Looks like the dead last's talk about justice was all nothing but talk, the Dobi took the coward's way out of this exam. This caused the majority of the audience to laugh at the blonde's expense even if he wasn't here to hear it. A small few however didn't laugh. Stadium. Audience. Kiba at this moment was beyond pissed. Why was he pissed? Naruto was nowhere to be seen. That coward. He shouted in anger. Sume shook her head. She believed that the demon brat had also chickened out, as did her daughter, Hana. Hinata came to his defense. I'm sure he's just late, she stuttered. But Katetsu, who was near them, had overheard what she said. He just laughed at her, and said, yay, late so he misses the match, At this, however, his friend Izumo shook his head. Hinata's head fell. She had hoped he would get here for the exam. Hanabi smirked as she believed that Naruto ran in fear of the Hyuga. She said to her father, "Looks like the coward runaway father." Her smirk fell when Heishi's face didn't change from a serious one. He was one of the few, like Hiruzen, who believed in his ancestor, and at this moment wondered if Naruto also knew. Stadium, arena. Genma waited for 5 minutes, and then decided that it was time to call in off. He wanted the boy to get here so he could face the Hyuga and hopefully win, as he hated their arrogant pride. He began to call up to the audience. Since Naruto Uzumaki isn't here to participate in this match, he is therefore he was quickly stopped short however when the stadium's temperature dropped dramatically. To his amazement, snow began to appear in and around of the arena. He then looked to the Hokage, and was shocked to see on his face bear a smile. He knew at that moment how it was. Stadium, cage booth. Sarutobi was smiling. Very few things get him smiling, and this was one of them. But at the same time, he was scared, as he wondered how the boy had changed. The cage turned to him curiously. "May I ask what is going on, Lord Hokage?" he asked in a wondering tone. The Hokage's face turned his smirk-bearing face and replied, "You'll see in a few seconds why I am smiling, Lord Cage." The Cage turned his attention back to the arena to see what would happen. Stadium, arena. Neji wondered what was going on. He was about to be declared the winner as fate had decided, but this interruption had stopped it before it could continue. A combined voice of two then echoed throughout the stadium, both shocking and scaring the audience, and in some ways the participants. "You speak of justice, Hyuga. Of cowardice. I will show you the justice of the grave, and the true meaning of fear." Everyone turned to the source of the voice, which was towards the entrance of the arena. What stood there was a figure in armor with a dark aura of death surrounding him. He then started walk to the center of the arena, slowly one step at a time, calling to Neji as he did so. "You believe that fate is on your side? That it has declared you the winner of this match? Do you believe that you are chosen in a way, Hyuga? Do you believe yourself to be someone real special for something like fate to waste its time on you?" The figure was now standing near the center of the arena, facing Neji in all his dark glory. Before Genma could ask who this character was, the Hokage spoke out to him. "Took your time, Naruto?" the old man asked, shocking everyone present. Naruto turned to face the Hokage, and did a small bow in respect to the Hokage. "I apologize for being late, Lord Hiruzen Sarutobi, but Northrend is a place far from here." At the mention of the cursed land, everyone paled slightly. Neji foolishly decided to taunt Naruto in order to get back at him for interrupting his victory. "Looks like the Dobi showed up after all, and what's with the outfit? You thought you could scare me? You are as pathetic as that girl Hina." Enough. It was so loud that everyone gripped his or her ears in pain. Neji fell to the ground, clutching his ears in agony as the noise echoed constantly throughout the arena. Naruto let the echo continue for several seconds, before doing a small hand gesture, and the echo silenced. Neji began to look at Naruto warningly, and realized that taunts wouldn't work now. Everyone now looked at Naruto with a slight glint of fear in his or her eyes. Said boy, now looking like a man due to his size, turned to the proctor. "Should you be starting this match, sir?" he asked. Gemna nodded as he released himself from his close-to stupor, and signaled the starting of the match. Neji got into his gentle fist stance, while smirking. "You cannot defeat me, fate has already declared me the winner." He was so confident in his abilities. "Really?" Naruto asked in a bored tone, behind Neji. Neji was shocked at Naruto's sudden movement and turned around quickly to face him, but only to be punched in the face thanks to a metal gauntlet. This caused the Hyuga to be thrown back into the ground about 25 to 30 meters away from his starting position. This move had completely shocked the audience, and especially the Hyugas. How did the Byakugan not see him move? Neji got up, but slowly, coughing violent from the hit. He looked to Naruto, confusion running on his face. How did Neji started, preparing to ask the question that was on everyone's mind. The Byakugan not see me? Naruto finished the question. It is because I can mask my charka, so you cannot tell where my charka points are or tell where I am. Your greatest strength is now your greatest weakness, because since you rely so much on your Byakugan to fight you opponents, how do you intend to defeat me without it? Neji gritted his teeth. He now felt blind, despite having the all-seeing eye. Neji got into his stance again, causing Naruto to sigh at his stupidity. Neji then charged at Naruto, and tried to hit him, but in a way he was now blind due to the Byakugan not being able to see Naruto's charka points. Every time Neji tried to hit him, Naruto just easily dodged him again, and again, and again. He then grabbed the Hyuga's arm, and tried to throw him, but Neji countered with a strike to his arm, forcing Naruto to let go or be hit, but decided to retaliate by kicking him in the stomach. The metal on the boot added to the pain of the hit, causing Neji to double over. Naruto then followed with an uppercut, sending Neji flying into the sky. Naruto then extended his arm towards Neji, and did a grasping action with his hand, then threw the fist downwards towards the ground. Neji's body then threw itself into the ground at great speed, leaving a small crater in the process. After the dust cleared, everyone could see Neji's body in the crater, looking to be in a bad condition. Neji then proceeded to get up slowly and get out of the crater, suppressing many. Why? Asked Neji with a voice full of pain. Naruto replied. Why do you continue to deny fate? Naruto shook his helmed head in disappointment. Even now, you're still believing in fate, why do you believe in it so much? Asked Naruto in return. Neji proceeded to take of his headband, revealing the caged bird seal to the world, and then began inform him of the night and events that took his father's life, and informed him of how he was sacrificed for the main branch of the clan, just to preserve the Byakugan. Maybe now you will understand why I am in fates. He stopped suddenly when he heard Naruto beginning to chuckle. The chuckle soon became more and more into a laugh, before it turned into an even louder laugh. What's so funny? Shouted a now angry Neji. The laughter soon died down. You are an idiot. Neji's eyes widened in shock. What? You are an idiot. Neji's filled with anger, and charged at Naruto, despite being in bad shape. Naruto just extended arm towards Neji, and a strong wave of energy shot from his hand, sending Neji another 20 meters back onto the ground on his back. Neji now looked in agony from the strength of the hit. Now I have you attention, I would like to ask, what do you know about the Kyuubi incident 12 years ago? At this, those who knew the truth were shocked to see where he was going. No, he wouldn't. Thought the third as he though of what the consequences would be. The Yonadaime killed him, Neji replied to Naruto, who merely shook his head again. I tell you the truth about it, the fourth couldn't kill the Kyuubi, no mortal can. What he did was he sealed it into a child. Neji's eyes went wide, as did those of the younger generation. Who was it sealed into? Neji asked, fearing the answer. Naruto replied. Me. Stadium. Audience. The rookie 9 members were in shock, now they understood why he was hated all these years. Sum shouted however. Correction, he is the Kyuubi. Just about everyone, apart from the rookie 9 shouted in agreement. So that's why, was all Sakura could say. She knew better, being with him on a team for so long made her see he couldn't be the Kyuubi. Ino turned to her. Do you think he is the Kyuubi? She asked. Sakura turned to her. Do you? She asked in return. Ino shook her head. Kiba? Hinata asked looking at her friend. He looked extremely angry, as he was shaking. Kiba turned to his mother, Sum. Mom. Sum looked at him, but was shocked when he glared angrily at her. Would you shut the fuck up? He yelled at her. Everyone went silent at the outburst. Kiba continued, but this time his anger was directed to the whole crowd. Have any of you tried to get to know him? Ord, he was silenced by Naruto said the next few words, which would shock all of Konoha. I should have been more accurate, he was sealed in me. Silence filled the stadium. Neji asked the question all wanted to know. What do you mean by was? He asked. Naruto turned to him. Naruto then grabbed and pulled out his blade from the scabbard, then pointed it to the ground, for all to see its design. It gave off an evil glow, as well as an unholy aura of death. Naruto then explained. This sword, which goes by the name of Frostmourne, was forged by my late ancestors 3 millennia ago, and was empowered with the ability to steal souls. One of these souls, which is its latest victim, was the 9-tailed fox, so I am no longer the vessel of the beast. He then put the sword back in its scabbard. Can we get back to this match? It's been going on long enough. Neji then did something totally out of character. Proctor, I forfeit. Everyone was once again shocked at this. He then explained why. I am beyond my own limits as my Byakugan is useless, and the opponent I face is much stronger than I am, but I've gained something more important than a rank. Someone has shown me the truth. Gemna nodded, and then shouted. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto then proceeded to walk to Neji, and help him up from the ground. I hope you understand now that fate is nothing in this world. Neji nodded with a small smile on his face. Now he has seen someone who had a dark life, but survived and became strong, not from fate, but from sheer determination. Naruto nodded to Neji, glad to see that he was no longer an arrogant brat. Then he heard clapping. He turned to see the Kazekage clapping, and then the Hokage began to clap with him, then some of the audience. More and more of the audience joined in the clapping until the entire stadium was rocked with thunderous applause. Konoha Stadium. The very foundations of the village shook to the sounds of applause that ripped through the air, as citizen and shinobi alike stood from their seats to extend their eternal gratitude to the heavily armored boy-turned-adult king that stood in the middle of arena setting. Not only did they all see a match that showed them of two great fighters, both from different walks of life, come together as one, but also the fact that the winner of the match had forever rid the village of a terrible curse that haunted their very souls. As this happened, many began to wonder if the young blonde would ever forgive them for the shunning his existence, but that didn't matter at this moment in time, as all from Konoha were happy of the turn of events that have transpired today. The daimyo of Ryer country looked on with a small smile on his lips, and turned his head to a young girl who sat next to him on the right. She wore a golden embroidered kimono, with her long dark hair flowing down her back, part of it encircled in a decorative hairpiece. Her eyes were sparkling emerald and had a pale yet fair complexion. The look on her face was one of curiosity as she looked over the armored being in the arena. Does this boy interest you, my dear daughter? The feudal lord asked in an questioning, but gentle tone. The girl turned her head towards him, and smiled in reply. Stadium, Cage Booth. As the rogue Sanin Orochimaru, currently disguised as the Kazekage of Suna, clapped to the boy below, he began to wonder his thoughts to the ancient legends of the long-forgotten past. If indeed the legends of the Lich King is true, then the legend of the Winds of Magic is also true as well. Now, if only I could get that brat down there to reveal his secrets to me. Better yet, how could I get that crown and sword that he now wields? Orochimaru began to wonder if the Winds of Magic were still around, or even if the legends of the great races still existed. If the Winds of Magic are indeed true, then why should I go for the Sharingan, when I can go for something far greater? And if I can get that crown, then I would be invincible. As Orochimaru was thinking of this, he was about to chuckle, only to stop when he remembered that the third Hokage was standing next to him. Hiruzen Sarutobi was smiling one of his big smiles as he clapped for Naruto, proud as a grandfather would be of his grandson. Naruto, he thought with pride, even though you now wield one of the greatest, yet darkest powers that exist in the world, you still have kept your ability to be able to change people for the better. With that he then began to make his way out of the booth and walk towards the contestants' booth. This caused the Kazekage turn to him. May I ask where you are going, Lord Hokage? He asked curiously. Sarutobi turned his head to the left to send his gaze to the sand cage. I need to see someone who I consider to be a grandson. he merely replied with a smile gracing his features. Stadium. Audience. Sakura and Ino were on their feet, cheering and clapping for Naruto as loud as they. Sakura had a huge smile on her face as she looked at her changed teammate. Well, Naruto, looks like I will have to train harder to keep up with both you and Sasuke-kun. Looking at you now, I realize how much of an idiot I've been to not take being a ninja seriously, Sakura thought while she watched him and Neji move out of the arena. I also realized how much of an idiot I've been to treat you so badly, now that I understand your darkest secret. Naruto-kun, you're truly one great person. Hinata was extremely happy, as her crush had won the fight against her cousin Neji, but she felt slightly scared at his appearance. Seeing him as big as an adult in armor and a scary helm made her wonder if he was the same Naruto she knew all those years ago. But she now understood why he was alone, and now vowed to never let him be alone again. I will be there for you, Naruto-kun, I promise this. Well, I'll be, was all Kotetsu could say, shocked by the events that just transpired. He's completely different from the old Naruto we saw back in the preliminaries, Azumo said, in which Kotetsu had to nod in agreement. I don't believe it, Hanabi whispered in her mind, believing she was in a strange dream when she saw this. She found it hard to believe that a Hyuga prodige like Neji could and was so easily defeated by this unknown person. So he does know. Heishi was now convinced of what he believed after he watched this match. Naruto was indeed the ancestor of Arthas. And that meant he was the son of Minato, his close friend. Minato, forgive me for being blind and foolish. Stadium. Contestants booth. Naruto gracefully walked up the stairs to where the other participants were standing. Neji was sent straight to the medical wing to get the wounds he suffered during the match patched up. As Naruto got to the top of the stairs, he noticed that Shikamaru was walking towards him, his usual bored and uninterested expression painted on his face. But the expression quickly turned to a small smirk. Whoa, Naruto, did you go through a growth spurt or did you eat something other than ramen? The Nara asked in a joking way as he looked at the now adult-sized genin. Naruto just chuckled in response to the Nara's playful question. He then lifted his hand up to grab on of the helm, and then proceeded to lift it off his head. Nara first noticed that his hair was no longer spiky, but slightly short and calmer, as if it had no life like it once had. Think Dante's hairstyle from the Devil May Cry series, but a light blonde instead of white. The lazy nin also noticed his physical changes to his face, and it reminded him of that of the fourth Hokage. So Nara, you ready for your match with her? Naruto asked, pointing to the female Suna nin standing in the corner of the booth. With his helmet was off, his voice no longer sounded like 2-in-1, but instead a calm, mature voice. The Nara just sighed as he looked over his shoulder to his soon-to-be opponent. Troublesome, why do I have to fight a girl? Naruto just shook his head at Shikamaru's attitude. Then he noticed something off. Is Sasuke here at all? He asked in a questioning tone. His eyebrow rose an inch when the Nara shook his head. He was about to open his mouth to reply when he saw the third Hokage walking into the booth and walked towards him, only stopping a few feet away. The two continued to stare at each other for about half a minute, as if in a staring match, when the two suddenly gave off large grins directed at the other. How have you been, Sarutobi Gigi? You still able for your age? Asked the young Lich King in a cheery and cheeky tone. Better as I'll ever be, my dear boy, was the equally cheery reply. I may be an old man, but I refuse to be in a pushchair. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at the reply he received, but then suddenly his face then turned deadly serious, which caused Sarutobi to raise an eyebrow. May I have a quick, private chat? At this Sarutobi nodded, noticing the slightly urgent look in the boy's eye. Sarutobi shunshined out of the booth, and Naruto disappeared in a swirling blue flame, leaving behind a small group of confused contenders. Konoha. Hokage Monument. The two powerful nin stood on top of the fourth's head, the calm wind blowing past them. Both overlooked the village that was their home, and both stood in silence. The young undead king got straight to the point and turned to the third. The cage is dead, it's really Orochimaru in disguise. His body was discovered by some of my men in the Suna Desert. At this, Sarutobi's eyes widened in shock. Naruto continued. The sound and sand forces have united against this village and have surrounded the whole area. There's roughly about 1,000 in total, which is including the mercenaries he had hired for this. At this, the third sighed in annoyance. This day was getting worse by the second. Why have Suna allied with Orochimaru? Questioned a puzzled third. He would have thought the cage would have known better than to ally with a backstabbing traitor. Why don't you ask the daimyo of Wind Country? He is the reason for it. Sarutobi immediately understood what Naruto said. Orochimaru used the current financial problems that Suna are currently facing to get them to attack Konoha in a hopeful bid to gain the Wind Daimyo's favor. The fools. He asked Naruto, and what about Gaara? Is he? Naruto nodded. Yes, he is indeed the vessel of one of the tailed beasts, the one-tailed raccoon known as Shukaku. Don't worry, Gigi, I intend to deal with him personally. The third could only shudder at what he meant, but he knew it wouldn't be good. And what about the Sound Sand Alliance forces which are a threat to the village? What are you planning to do with them? The Hokage asked the Lich King, whose face grew a dark smirk in a return to the question asked. He then turned to the old man, simply saying, I've got a few friends to aid me with this small problem we are currently in. Forest. Few miles outside Konoha. A small group of ninja bearing headbands of sound and sand were preparing for their attack on Konoha. Small groups like this were all around the forest. One such ninja was sharpening his kunai, more than ready to kill some Konoha nins, but stopped when he heard a strange sound, as did the others who were with him. He tried to find where the sound was coming from. The dense trees amplified the sound, so it sounded like it was all around them. He continued to try and find the source, but then a whizzing sound went past him. He turned and looked in horror as a Suna nin had an arrow embedded into his skull, which he then fell onto his knees, then forwards into the ground. He then looked to see the direction the arrow came from and was horrified to see a large group of corpses come out of the trees. The nin stood up from the ground and charged the nearest walking corpse, a kunai in hand. He easily cut through the first corpse and then the second. Suddenly he saw a walking skeleton in what looked to be armor and carrying a shield running towards him. The nin tried to cut the skeleton in two, but his kunai was blocked by the large shield. He then had to jump back as the skeleton swung his blade diagonally. Finding an opening due to its clumsy moves, he moved quickly to ove past the shield and severed the bone head from the body, which caused the whole thing to collapse into a pile of bones. The nin smiled as he felt victory, but it was short-lived. Suddenly an arrow struck him deep in the thigh, causing him to scream in pain as he fell to the ground, helpless. He could only watch as the undead monsters mercilessly continued to overwhelm and butcher his friends, comrades and allies. They never stood a chance. There were too many of them to fight off. And due to the large difference in numbers, they would easily fall. He then turned to look up and terror completely enveloped his senses as he saw a giant monster made of different corpses tower over him. His last living moments were looking at a bloodied cleaver which slammed into his face. And throughout the forest, similar attacks happened with other small groups of the Sound Sand Alliance. If it continued, Orochimaru's forces would be easily defeatable in this condition, and it was quickly getting worse for them. Konoha. Hokage Monument. Sarutobi could only think and wonder on what horrors the ninja would face, and couldn't help but pity them for what they were facing. Naruto's face then began to grow a small smile. I suppose you are interested to know what happened to my body while I was out there? He asked the elderly Hokage, who nodded in reply. After I took this crown upon my head, I felt the surge of power you could only dream of run through my whole body. I felt like the very essence of death was at my full command, at my beck and call. Shortly after this overwhelming power died down, Frostmourne, which was with the crown within what remains of Icecrown Citadel, began to glow a strange, white light. When I grabbed the hilt, I felt like my very soul and being was getting forcefully ripped out off my body. But it wasn't my own soul, it was the Kyuubi's. I can tell you now, Sarutobi, he went into the sword literally kicking and screaming, and even had the goal to begin threatening me about revenge and how he would return, as it quote. Shortly after that, the Kyuubi's own remaining power, combined with the magical powers this crown gave me, began to warp my body. I must say it was very painful. I had a large growth spurt in several seconds and gaining quite a few feet. It was far from a pleasant experience, Naruto explained with a long sigh at the end. The look on Sarutobi's face meant he was slowly digesting the information he had just received. His eyes turned into ones filled with sorrow. I'm dreadfully sorry, Naruto, for not telling you of your heritage. It was because of your father having many enemies during his lifetime, both in and out of Konoha. If they were to find out about your father, then they would have used you as the revenge ticket. Naruto sighed at the old man's apology. He then looked him in the eye. He placed a hand on the old man's shoulder and a gentle smile on his lips. I understand why you did it, Sarutobi, and I do thank you for keeping me alive. I forgive you, Gigi. Naruto said the last part with a larger smile. The third was pleased that he was still in the boy's good books. He wouldn't have forgiven himself if he had failed. I think it's best we head back to the stadium. We have delayed this exam long enough, Sarutobi spoke with authority. Naruto nodded in agreement. He knew the real meaning behind the Hokage's words. Let us return to the exam and deal with my traitorous student once and for all. Upon replacing his helm, both left the monument to return to the stadium. Stadium, contestants' booth. Naruto reappeared in a swirl of blue flames, causing the others to keep away from him, in case of getting burnt by the strange flames. Naruto noticed that Sasuke still hadn't appeared, and it was his match next with Gaara. Naruto looked over his left shoulder to get a glacé of the demon vessel. He could easily tell by just looking at him that he had little to no control over his inner demon. Naruto thought it best that when he faced Gaara, he would have to permanently deal with the beast to solve the problem once and for all. He then looked at the crowd, and could see they were getting restless about the delays that they were getting. Genma then began shouting how Sasuke's match with Gaara would be postponed as the last match, which was met with many outcries. The king couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Orochimaru must be behind this so he can see the Uchiha's power for himself. He must have wanted to see how his future vessel would fight against a vessel of the one-tailed beast. The next match would be Shino and the Suna Nin Konkuro, although he decided to forfeit his match, which again was met with further outcries. Naruto believed that he didn't want to show his puppet to his enemy just yet. The Suna Nin Tamari then used her fan to glide down into the arena. She must be anxious to fight Shikamaru, although said Nara looked like he wanted to forfeit his match. With a sigh, Naruto grabbed the Nara by the back of the shirt and lifted him up so his feet were dangling of the ground. The Nara looked behind him and saw what looked to be a glare from the blonde. He spoke if he had two voices in one again. For once, just once, please don't be a lazy and fight, and with that Naruto threw him into the arena, causing him to land with a face full of dirt. The match was interesting. He never saw that side of Shikamaru before. Despite looking and acting like a lazy fool, he actually showed good sense of tactical knowledge and a keen strategic mind. Naruto thought that he did the right thing to quit after losing all his chakra to fight against the Suna girl. But at that point he also realized how much he himself had changed. He realized that the old him would have continued to fight till the end, and maybe get killed in the process. He then began to wonder how he changed in other areas as well. Stadium, audience. As Kiba and Hinata waited for the next match, they noticed a black-robed figure with a hood was standing next to them on the stairs, motionless like a statue. Excuse me? Asked Hinata to the figure with concern, who looked to jolt slightly when she spoke to him. The figure turned to face her. She couldn't see his face whatsoever. It was completely black, as if it wasn't there. Yes. His voice was calm and kind, but held a small touch of evil with it. This of course unnerved Hinata, but stayed strong. See, could I ask why you are? The figure chucked at this, and then replied. Me. I am a member of the Scourge, dear child, and a close friend of the Lich King of Oath New and Old, Kiba then intervened. Yay, but what is your name? At this the figure couldn't help but laugh slightly. Such brashness, my boy. Don't worry, you'll learn very soon. At this the two genin looked confused slightly as he walked to the bottom end of the audience booths closer to the arena. The crowd was getting restless with the waiting of the Uchiha, and many of the daimyos looked disappointed, as this was the main event they came to see for. Stadium, cage booth. Looks like his time is up, the third said, already knowing what the cage's reply was going to be. Couldn't you wait just a little longer for the boy? The cage asked. He knew he was pressing a bit too far, but Orochimaru hoped to see if Sasuke had improved, and how well he would go against Gaara. Sarutobi shook his head. No, I have waited enough for him, but I will not give the Uchiha any more time. At this Orochimaru couldn't help the frown. He wouldn't get see the Uchiha fight after all. Stadium, arena. Genma had waited enough time for the next contestant. Gaara was already in the arena ready. He was about to call the match to Gaara when a swirl of leaves appeared, revealing Kakashi and Sasuke in the middle of it. The crowd cheered at the two. The daimyos were happy about seeing the so-called main match of the exam. Kakashi then left the arena and went into the stands. Stadium, cage booth. So, he has appeared after all, Orochimaru was pleased. Let's see how powerful you are, Sasuke-kun. Let's see if you have improved during our last encounter. Stadium, audience. Kakashi was hoping for a victory for Sasuke, but was still unnerved by the fact on how dangerous Gaara was. So my youthful rival, how do you feel about having two great ninja in your team? Guy asked standing next to him. The copycat ninja turned with an eyebrow raised. Two great ninja? He asked. Guy pointed behind him, so he turned. His eyes widened when he saw a dark armored figure walking towards them. He gave a wave to Mighty Guy. Greetings, Guy-sensei. How is Lee? Asked the figure. Kakashi noted he spoke as if he had two voices. One was human, the other demonic. Guy didn't look fazed one bit, as he quickly gave his signature pose. He is doing fine, young one. Although he is still unable to get to full health, his youthfulness has kept him strong, Naruto-kun. At the sound of the name, Kakashi's eye went wide. Naruto, was all he could ask. Naruto turned to face Kakashi. Yes, it's me, Kakashi-san, was his reply. Kakashi was shocked that he didn't call him sensei, his eye then narrowed. Naruto, what's gotten into you? What's happened to you? Said boy turned adult just laughed at who he considered his former sensei, then he glared at him. The glare caused Kakashi to feel unnerved as he looked into the glowing cold eyes of what was now his former student. You left me with that perverted idiot of a Jonin while you consecrated all your efforts on Sasuke, but it's no matter, he won't be able to beat Gaara. What makes you say that, Naruto? Came the reply. Naruto turned his gaze to the arena. Because Gaara's demon is out for blood. Stadium, arena. Mother wants your blood, she demands it. Gaara's eyes showed what the true depths of insanity looked like. Sasuke just scoffed, and got into the stance that Lee used against Gaara. Stadium, audience. Naruto's eyes were in shock at the stance Sasuke used. He then turned to Kakashi with anger in his veins and grabbed him by the collar, which after he easily lifting him up. Kakashi was shocked at Naruto's attitude. He was completely different Naruto he once knew. You stole Lee's style and gave it Sasuke. Naruto was beyond pissed. Kakashi did a low move in his eyes. To him, stealing anything was that of a low, desperate fool. Naruto, don't. Guy called to Naruto. Naruto then just dropped Kakashi, then turned back to the match that was about to start. You better hope that Sasuke survives this, was all the Lich King said. Stadium, arena. Match between Sasuke Uchiha and Gaara of the desert, begin. Genma shouted. Sasuke charged at Gaara full speed, causing him to be shocked that the Uchiha's speed was close to Lee's. Luckily for Gaara, the sand was able to keep up with the Uchiha's speed. When Sasuke managed to get through the wall of sand, he gave Gaara a right hook, but it was a sand clone. The Uchiha turned and jumped, just dodging the sand that tried to envelope him. Gaara then went on the offensive, attacking with multiple waves of sand. Sasuke blocked and dodged most of them, but one got in, hitting him in the stomach, sending him backwards a few feet, but quickly recovered from the attack and dodged the next sand attack sent his way. Sasuke decided to attack from the side, which caught the Sand Prince of guard. The punch connected and sent Gaara flying across the arena, but quickly recovered and created a sand dome surrounding him before Sasuke could land another hit. Spikes then appeared out of the dome, which Sasuke stopped merely inches from them. Sasuke then backed away close to the wall of the stadium, and began to gather charka in his hand. Suddenly, the sound of birds chirping began to fill the arena. Stadium, audience. So you decided to teach him the Chidori as well? Naruto asked Kakashi, who nodded. Naruto only sighed. He is going to need more than that to beat Gaara. At this, Kakashi looked confused. How? Asked the Jonin. Gaara's sand defense won't be enough to stop the attack, and how can his sand grab the hand when it's got lightning in it? He doesn't need to grab the hand, the arm is the weakness. At this, Kakashi's eye went wide, realizing what Naruto meant. Stadium, arena. Sasuke charged full speed at Gaara, fully intent on ending the match. Gaara's sand dome came back up ready to defend from the attack. When Sasuke was close to him, he sent more spikes to attack the Uchiha with. However, Sasuke dodged to the right and drove his hand into the dome. Chidori, he shouted as it went through the dome like a knife through butter. He then smirked, believing it connected. Silence filled the entire stadium as all wondered what happened. Sakura and Ino were hoping he won against the Sunanin, Kakashi was hoping Sasuke got him with the Chidori, and Naruto was hoping Sasuke got out of this alive. Then, evil laughter filled the stadium as the dome dispersed, revealing to the horror of the audience of Gaara in his half-Shukaku form, with the Chidori merely inches from his body, and sand enveloped around Sasuke's wrist. The eyes of Gaara showed the horrors of what a Jinchuriki can become. Then Sasuke screamed as he felt his wrist slowly get crushed, causing the Chidori to disperse. Gaara then threw the injured Uchiha against a wall, causing a small crater. Sand began to slowly crawl towards Sasuke, who was in deep pain because of his damaged wrist. Stadium, audience. Sasuke can't do anything, Kakashi said in a worried tone. He was about to lose another comrade. Damn, muttered Naruto. He then looked to his right and, to his astonishment, saw the entire Rookie 9, running towards the front of the audience booths. Sasuke! Exclaimed both Sakura and Ino as they leant over the railings. Shit! Kiba shouted as he realized what was about to happen. That's the movement for his killing attack. We have to move now. He yelled to the other. We won't make it in time, Shikamaru replied to his comrade, feeling the horror of being powerless to stop this. Stadium, arena. The sand snaked around Sasuke as he began to struggle to get free. Gaara was laughing like a possessed madman. Die! The beast exclaimed, I will have your blood. Sabaku s. He was cut short when a wave of energy appeared around Sasuke, which ripped the sand apart that was surrounding him, causing him to drop to the ground. As he looked up, he could see a figure in armor with a drawn sword, looking at the beast that was Gaara. The figure then turned his head to look at the Uchiha. Do I need to save your every time, Tem? At the sound of the nickname, Sasuke's eyes went wide. Naruto? He asked, though he didn't get a reply as Naruto turned his head to face Gaara again, who looked furious. How dare you stop me from getting his blood? He exclaimed, I will have yours instead. He extended his sand arm to attack Naruto, as the screams of his frightened friends calling his name went through the air. Naruto, however, quickly channeled his magical energy into his free hand, which took the form of what looked to be a black Chidori, and threw it at Gaara like a flying missile. As soon as it left his hand, the small ball gained tremendous size. I easily broke through Gaara's sand arm and then hit him with tremendous force, forcing out a blood-filled scream from Gaara as he was sent flying backwards. The attack didn't stop, however, and went straight into the wall, causing a massive explosion, and when the smoke cleared, a large hole in the wall. Gaara easily got up however, despite looking heavily wounded from the attack. Naruto turned to Sasuke and picked him up, and teleported in a swirl of blue flames to the audience booth away from Gaara. Genma realized it was best to call the match now, and shouted, "Winner of the match, Gaara of the Desert." Stadium, audience. No one dared clap as the winner was called. They all saw Naruto reappear next to where the other rookie 9 and most Jonin were located. Naruto then put Sasuke down onto a chair. "Naruto, is that you?" Sasuke asked through the pain. "Yes, it is me, Sasuke, though I'm a completely different person now," was his reply. The medic Nin soon arrived to have a look at the fallen Uchiha. A voice then filled the stadium. "Come down now, Uzumaki Naruto. I'll kill you. Make me feel alive. Get down here. I want to taste your blood." At this, Naruto turned to face the possessed Gaara. "I'll give you more than just that. I'll make fear death itself, you pathetic fool," was the Lich King's reply. His voice sounded like the Shinigami himself, frightening a lot of people throughout the stadium, which included many of the R9. They never saw him in this new light, but they didn't like it. He was about to leave to go to the arena when he felt arms grip his left wrist. He turned and saw it was both Sakura and Hinata, who both looked to have tears welling up in their eyes. "Don't go, please. He'll kill you," Sakura exclaimed. He then put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Sakura-san, Hinata-chan, he won't, I promise you." She was shocked he didn't add "chan," but smiled because he never broke a promise. She and Hinata then let go of his arm, but were both still worried. "You're playing a dangerous match, Naruto. Please be careful on this," Kakashi said. Despite being calm, Hito was worried for the boy, no, man's safety. "Don't be an idiot," Kiba exclaimed. "He'll kill you if you go down there." Akamaru barked in agreement. "So what will you do, my master?" Everyone turned to look at a black-robed figure with a hood. Hinata and Kiba both realized it was the same man who they met earlier. "Two paths are open to you, both with their own consequences, but what road will you take?" Naruto then moved towards the entrance to go to the arena, but then stopped and looked at Gaara. "You see him?" he asked them all. He then turned to them. "If I had given in to what I suffered, I would have become something like him." "What do you mean by that?" asked Kakashi, wondering where all this philosophical talk came from. "He was like me, a vessel of a demon." At this, everyone gasped. Sasuke was shocked to realize he was facing a demon vessel. Naruto continued, "But unlike me, the seal that keeps his beast in is weak and unstable, causing him to live in fear of any moment to be taken over by the demon within him." He then drew his blade again. "I will relieve him of this burden we were both cursed with before we were born." And with that he walked away. "Naruto!" Sasuke called out. Naruto turned his head. Sasuke smiled him, "Uchiha, good luck." Naruto only grinned in reply. Stadium, arena. The two contestants faced one another. The atmosphere was so tense it could be cut with a runeblade. Naruto then pointed his sword towards Gaara. "This ends today, now," was all he said. Stadium, audience. "How can Naruto move in all that metal on him?" Ino exclaimed. The hooded figure just laughed, causing all to look at him. "The armor is made from a blend of rare metals called dark mithril and serenite," he explained. "It a combination of those two main metals which make it a very hard material, but it is also enhanced with dark magics, making it almost indestructible. But its key feature from the creation is that it is as light as a feather." This caused the gathered audience who heard this to gape. "Wow," was all Shikamaru could say. The daimyo of fire and her daughter watched intently at this soon-to-be legendary match, both wondering what the outcome would be. "Come on, Naru-kun. Make me want to see you defeat this beast. Give me a great show," the girl thought as she gazed at the young king intently. Stadium, cage booth. Sarutobi was nearly having a heart attack. This would be a massive fight. He hoped that Orochimaru would not attack now. "Please be safe, Naruto," Sarutobi pleaded in his head. "Please be safe and beat this monster. Show Orochimaru your power and make him regret ever crossing Konoha." So Sasuke lost. 'Tis a pity, maybe he's not worth it now. Now I know that magic truly does exists. But now, let's see how strong you are, Naruto-kun. Show me how much of a threat you are to me and my plans. Orochimaru though, as watched the match that would soon make history. Stadium, arena, contestants ready, Genma shouted. Naruto grasped his sword with two hands, while Gaara didn't change his pose. Begin. And with that, the greatest ever battle within the Chunin exams, would being. As soon as the words left his mouth, Gaara charged at Naruto, fully intent on butchering him to satisfy his own thirst with his blood. Naruto stood his ground, waiting for the moment. Then, when Gaara was close to the armored behemoth, he tried to swipe at Naruto with his sand arm. Naruto however easily ducked under its clumsy swing and moved to punch Gaara with his left into his human side of the body. The force of the blow received caused Gaara to stumble back slightly, but took yet another swipe at the Lich King, which found its target. The force of the swipe made Naruto fall back a few feet to the ground. Gaara lifted his arm up and prepared to crush him, but Naruto teleported behind Gaara in a blink of blue light. Gaara turned around to receive blast of dark magical energy right in the face. Gaara screamed in pain as he felt the hit, then looked at Naruto with an infinite amount of rage blazing in his crazed eyes. Your blood will be mine, screamed the insane beast as large waves of sand appeared around and went towards Naruto. Naruto's sword, Frostmourne, began to glow with dark energy, and in a mighty arc, swung the blade in Gaara's direction. The large arc made a power wave of energy that could be mistaken for a wind attack. It ripped the sand waves apart with ease, and struck Gaara with mighty force. The force of the blow sent the possessed Nin flying into the wall of the arena, creating a large dust cloud due to the impact. All went quiet. Stadium, audience. Many were both scared and amazed by the power the young king had shown. No one had ever seen such power used by one person before. Whoa, what power does Naruto have? Exclaimed Kiba, shocked to see how the battle dragged this way. Sasuke couldn't believe his eyes at the power he just witnessed. He needed to know what power Naruto wielded if he was to get stronger. Strong enough to kill his own brother, Itachi. Did he beat him? Asked Hinata with a bit of fear. I don't know, was the reply from Guy. Kakashi didn't reply because he was too stunned to see the power that Naruto now possessed. Stadium, arena. Naruto was calm, but alert. He closely watched the smoking crater to see what Gaara would do next. If his plan was to succeed, then Gaara must be too injured to fight. He then heard a noise coming from the crater, causing Naruto to grasp his sword tightly, waiting for the beast. When the smoke cleared, Gaara was gone. Naruto's eyes widened in realization, but it was too late. The sand around him began to shift, then rose up and surrounded Naruto, grasping him tightly and lifted him up into the air. Gaara then rose up from the sand, laughing insanely with glee. Now your blood is mine. He cracked insanely, as he extended his hand, ready to crush him, die. Naruto could hear the terrified voices of his friends. He couldn't die here, not now, not this way. I don't think so. The Lich King yielded as his eyes began to glow more brightly than before. His body then began to glow a dim blue light. He then glared at Gaara from behind his helm. Eat this, was all he said, and the energy he gathered in his body shot out like a shockwave, creating a large sphere around the Lich King. The sphere broke the sand that encircled Naruto and he dropped to the ground with a loud, thunk. He quickly recovered and then charged towards Gaara with great speed. Gaara prepared to swipe at Naruto again with his sand arm, but before it could connect, the young king sliced it off using Frostmourne, causing Gaara to scream. Then, using his left hand, he began to channel energy that took the form of a close-ranged ice attack. But before he could reach it to the demon vessel, sand grabbed and encircled his left wrist and arm. The energy channeled into the ice bolt ceased, and the bolt disappeared. With a snarl, Naruto then used his right arm, which held his blade and cut the sand, which was connected to the ground, realizing him from Gaara's hold. Then after a second later, he jumped a good distance away from the possessed ninja. Gaara, who was gritting his teeth in what looked to be pain, then began to mutter something, which was getting louder and louder. He then shouted to the heavens. Yes, he exclaimed, he makes me feel alive. I want his blood more and more. His voice became demonic, and sand began to cover the rest of his body. To the horror of many, he turned into a miniature form of the one-tailed raccoon. He then lowered his and looked at his foe, with the eyes of a demon. Blood! It exclaimed as it launched its left arm, which extended a great distance and grabbed the armored figure with great speed, who was then crashed into a wall from the force of the blow. The beast then began to try and crush Naruto using his sand arm and using the stone wall to do it with. Naruto could easily see he was now literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm not done yet, Naruto managed to say in between his gritted teeth, and using the angle he was in, got Frostmourne to pierce the sand. From there he managed to use the rune blade to cut the hand in two, realizing him from what was literally being stuck between a rock and a hard place. The beast then let out a mighty roar and charged at the boy with high speeds, which looked impossible due to its bulk. Naruto teleported again and appeared behind of Gaara just when he was about to get to him, and then, gathering his energy, formed the attack he used to save Sasuke, and drove it into its back. Unlike before where it battered Gaara out of the way, it instead completely enveloped him, caused the demonic Gaara to scream in pain as the ball of energy went flying into the wall of the stadium, with him in it. Stadium audience. Everyone watched the powerful attack at its most dangerous level, some couldn't help but wince at the hint. The Rookie 9 were astonished to see the attack that saved Sasuke used in a similar, yet different way. What the hell is that attack? Screamed the blonde-haired girl of the Rookie 9 as she observed its use a second time. It's called a darkness orb, replied the hooded figure. It's a sphere of concentrated dark energy which can obliterate or severely damage what it hits. Due to the power of that sphere, I would say that if Gaara was normal, he would have been completely eradicated by the attack. Sasuke then turned to him. Where did Naruto get all this power from? He asked. He needed that power to avenge his family. He began to wonder why Naruto got this and not him, and Uchiha. The figure turned his hood to him. The power Naruto wields is the power that his ancestor wielded. Sasuke's eyes went wide. It was a power that Naruto inherited from his ancestors. Sakura then turned to the figure. So his ancestors wielded this power? She asked. The figure nodded. Not just this, but more. At this Kakashi then turned to face the figure as well. Will he become as strong as the first Lich King? At the sound of this name the genin looked confused. Who was his Lich King? But they could tell from the name he would be on the side of evil. In due time, yes, the figure replied once again. He then turned to the genin. He asked, would you like to know who the Lich King is? They nodded. Very well. It all began when Kil'jaeden the Deceiver, a power demonlord, even more powerful than the Kyuubi, sealed the spirit of an orc, a race far different than humans, that went by the name of Ner'zhul. Initially trapped within the frozen throne, which was a massive block of ice, the Lich King eventually merged with the human Arthas Menethil, becoming one being in the new Lich King. Arthas was a human prince from the lands called Lordaeron, but became the Lich King's champion when he wielded the runeblade Frostmourne, which forever damned his soul. He is the creator of the Scourge, which is the name of the undead forces that roamed the world, and ruled over it from his throne atop the Icecrown Glacier, which later became Icecrown Citadel, and controlled it via the form of telepathy. However, the Lich King had no allies, as he was the enemy of the living, and so the whole world. Because of his power and threat to their own, the races of the world put aside their differences to combat and defeat the Lich King once and for all. The war that soon followed continued for many years, and many on all sides lost their lives. But, in a final confrontation with the Lich King himself on the top of Icecrown, the leaders of the allied races, as well as other powers involved in the war, finally destroyed him. However, the Lich King had a son, thanks to a woman who went by the title, the Shadow Queen. This woman never once made an appearance at all during the war, or even after. As such, she escaped unnoticed by the allied race, and since very few knew who she was, managed to walk freely throughout the world. And so the Arthas's son, and his descendants lived on, because of the arrogance of the other races which believed that the scourge was no more. This was until that latest descendant of the Lich King, who is that boy you see down there, discovered his heritage. When he stole the forbidden scroll, he also found and took another, smaller scroll which called to him, whispering to him to take it with him. Within the scroll was a book that contained all the information and knowledge on his ancestors and his parents' legacy. And so he decided to bring back the scourge, but for a different purpose altogether. Everyone was in awe of the story. No one would ever had guessed that the idiot dead last was the descendant of one of the most powerful, but also evil figures in the world's history that caused everyone to unite in arms against him. It was surprisingly Hinata who spoke up next. Who was the Shadow Queen you spoke of? She asked with her usual stuttering tone. But the figure just shook his finger sideways in front of her face. That, my dear girl, is a story for another time. Stadium, arena. Naruto was waiting for Gaara's next move. He knew he would be coming back to get revenge, so he would have to make his move quickly if he wanted to survive against this demon. He knew that despite his powers, he was still no mock of a fully powered tailed beast. The earth began to shake violently, causing the Lich King to collapse to one knee. Then, he saw a mass of sand appear, and then began to take form. Behind the mold of sand was a large bushy tail, which dwarfed the size of the forming shape. The sight of this causing his eyes to grow wide. His worst fears had come true. Wahahaha. Finally, I'm free at last. And look what I see, a village for me to have fun some with. Now I can destroy what I please now that I am free. As the beast grew, began to fill the stadium arena, leaving a small amount of room for movement. Its dark, crazed eyes surveyed the village it currently resided in. With a sigh, the Scourge leader had no choice but to teleport to the stands. The worst case scenario has happened, Shukaku was free. Stadium, audience. What the hell? Kiba exclaimed as he observed the beast in front of him in fear. The beast in free, the robed figure muttered, then he sighed, the worst case scenario, as my master put it. He truly is a powerful weapon, Kakashi said. Even when Gaara is down, the demon will come to take his place on the battlefield. Suna must have been insane to try and control the beast this way, it would have only led to their own demise. Guy couldn't help but nod in agreement. They all turned to see Naruto appear next to the hooded figure they spoke to earlier. It looks like we have no choice but to use it, master, said the hooded figure as he gazed at the beast in the arena. The boy king nodded his head, looking to have a grim look on his face. I didn't want to, but it is the only thing powerful enough to counter Shukaku at this moment in time, and with that, he teleported again. He's crazy, Kiba exclaimed. Many nodded in agreement. Naruto-kun, was all Hinata could say, fearing for his life. I'm sure Naruto has a plan for this situation. My bugs are informing me of a powerful presence around here. It was Shino who decided to speak. Ino turned to face him. What makes you say that? She asked, slightly confused. Shino pointed to the hooded figure that was with them. Everyone there turned to face him. You'll see, boys and girls, was all he said. But he had a happy tone that danced in his tone, causing some to look confusedly at him. Why would he have a happy tone in his voice when there is a massive monster in the stadium, ready to destroy Konoha if it's not stopped very soon? Stadium. The young Lich King appeared on top of the outer wall of the stadium, sword drawn, and ready to begin the final steps of his plan. Shukaku, sensing an increase in power, turned his glaring gaze over to the young king. You, the demon exclaimed, I must say it's been fun to have a fight with you, but playtime is now over. The creature then began to move its body in an action that looked like to would charge head on to the undead lord. Naruto, however, gave a small smirk as he pointed the sword towards the 100-foot demon. The blade then began to glow from the tip all the way to the hilt as it was enhanced with blue energy. Naruto's smirk became bigger as he grasped the sword with both armored hands. You're right, Shukaku. Playtime is over, and as he said that, he reels the energy that he has stored within Frostmourne, causing a bright, blue light to envelope the arena. The light was so intense that it rivaled the sun itself, and so caused everyone that saw it to shield his or her eyes in order to block the blinding light which could rival the sun. Even Shukaku seemed to struggle with the bright light. When the light finally died down, everyone that opened their eyes to see what happened now began to wish they never did, as they saw their worst nightmare. They could only stare in horror at the creature Naruto was now standing on top of. It's, a woman said in the crowd, fear written all over her features and also filled in her voice. Kyuubi, Kakashi could only mutter in sheer terror as he stared at the beast, that 12 years ago almost destroyed Konoha and was responsible for killing his sensei, now standing in all its unholy glory. Naruto stood on top of the beast's head, standing both tall and proud while the beast gave off a mighty roar. Due to the size of the beast, and as well the size of Shukaku, the Kyuubi had no choice but to stand in the streets of Konoha, while the raccoon demon was able to stand in the stadium arena. Wait just 1 minute. Shukaku screamed within voice full of insanity, you're the Kyuubi. But at the same time, not the Kyuubi. What the hell are you exactly? Question mark quote. At this screaming observation from the beast that used to be Gaara, everyone looked at the creature Naruto had summoned, and, to the audience's astonishment, Shukaku was right. While the beast had the form of the nine-tailed fox, the skin of the giant fox was of a navy blue color instead of a bright red, with parts of its flesh looked torn and rotted, looking like an animate corpse. The 9 tails behind it took the form of bright blue flames, swishing violently in the air. Its eyes glowed blue with power, much like Naruto's eyes glow with his helmet on. The eyes of the beast made everyone think they were looking into the terrors of hell itself. What the hell? Shrieked Ino in confusion, causing Choji to rub his ears in pain as he was standing right next to her. Didn't Naruto say the Kyuubi was sealed into that sword? Sakura asked, with Kakashi and Sasuke looking at her in confusion. Seeing this, Guy decided to inform them of what happened during the first match. Naruto told everyone that he was the vessel of the Kyuubi, and that the sword, Frostmourne he calls it, sealed the demon inside it, thus causing him to no longer be his vessel. Kakashi nodded dumbly, while Sasuke's reaction was hard to understand. So if Naruto's sword sealed the demon, how become it standing there outside the arena? Kiba asked, slightly confused by what was going on. It's Kyuubi's corpse. Everyone turned to the voice, which belonged to Shikamaru Nara. Naruto said that Kyuubi's soul got sealed, but not its power. Basically the giant body is the corpse of the 9-tailed fox, and Mr. Mysterious over there did say that the Lich King could control undead with mere thoughts. So basically, Naruto has the power of the Kyuubi itself at his command, without having to worry about the demon itself. He then turned to the hooded figure, am I right? The figure nodded his hood to show a sign that the Nara's observations were indeed correct. Yes, Naruto can now control the powers of the tailed beast just like any other form of undead. Without your spirit, you are classified as an undead, and so can be controlled by the Lich King. Everyone besides the Nara now looked at Naruto with awe, astounded by the power Naruto could now wield. Be thankful that he is an ally, or Konoha would be in deep trouble. Shino spoke for the second time, many could only nod in agreement. If he ever turned on Konoha, they would be royally screwed. The former hyperactive blonde could only smile at the horror that grew on Shukaku's face as the beast he rode on, now identified as a zombie 9-tailed fox, gave out roar that filled the hearts of those who heard it with terror. Time to end this, the former Jinchuriki spoke as a smile appeared on his lips. The undead Kyuubi then jumped over the stadium wall with great height and ease, before landing on Shukaku, fangs and claws drawn. The claws easily ripped through the sand skin of the demon raccoon as easily as a hot knife cuts through butter, while its fangs bit deep into the demon's neck like a vampire hungry for blood. The pain ripped into Shukaku's body with tremendous force, causing it to scream in terrible agony as the undead beast continued to claw and tear at the skin of sand. The one-tailed demon tried to remove the Kyuubi from its body by smashing it with the tail, causing some of the rotting flesh to shred and fall off the Kyuubi's person. But, the zombie demon didn't budge an inch, due to both not being able to feel any pain from the blows that it received and that it has a strong, grasping hold over Shukaku. The claws of the unliving beast drove deeper into Shukaku's skin, causing even more howls of pain. Seizing his chance, Naruto jumped onto the head of the sand demon, and, with Frostmourne grasped firmly in his hands, began to mutter an incantation that were in a foreign language. The eyes of the sword's hilt began to glow menacingly with energy, and the blade of the sword began to glow white instead of the usual blue. After a few minutes of muttering words, the Lich King pointed the empowered sword downwards. "This is officially over," he shouted as he drove the sword into the skull of Shukaku, sending an unimaginably powerful wave of power into the demon's body. Shukaku screamed in agony as he felt his entire body get ripped apart from the energy that traveled through it. Some parts of its body began to crack open, while other parts sand began to run off the body onto the arena floor. Its eyes held the true essence of what pain is, and everyone could only watch with wide eyes of what was happening. As the body of Shukaku began to break apart, everyone saw an ethereal form of the one-tailed beast began to appear out of the breaking body. Everyone could only look on in awe as the incorporeal form of the beast let out a mighty scream as it got sucked into the mighty runeblade Naruto wielded. No, it screamed through the agonizing cries that were made, "I won't let this happen to me again." But it was too late. Shukaku continued to scream loudly until the last part of it disappeared into the blade. The large pile of sand that made up Shukaku's form began to flow back into the arena, and then vanish without a trace. The large flow of sand caused large amounts of heavy dust to envelope the stadium, denying everyone of their vision to the arena. All went quiet, wondering what had happened to the two combatants. "Please, be all right. Please be all right. Please be all right," Sakura continued to repeat over and over again, hoping for Naruto's safety. If that idiot of a blonde managed to get himself killed with his own stunt, I'm going to get seriously pissed off at him for doing it in the first place. Kiba yelled with anger, though concern was an obvious emotion on his face. Throughout the entire stadium, various shouts were coming from the audience, most of them exited or concerned. "Do you see them? Where are they? What happened down there? Are they all right?" Sasuke watched as he prayed that his friend and rival survived what had happened, while Kakashi has hoping his student managed to beat the sand beast. Hinata and Ino were watching silently, while Shino, although calm on the outside, was hoping for a miracle. Choji stopped munching on his crisps for a while as he watched the fight, and now dropped them as he grabbed the railing to try and get a better view. "There!" Someone in the audience shouted. Everyone looked to see Heishi, who had his Byakugan activated, point at a part of the arena near the center. Everyone followed her direction to find where the two ninja were located. Surely enough, the dust began to clear, and everyone could see the contestants. Naruto, with his sword in his right hand, stood over a near-unconscious Gaara, who had blood on his head and chest, showing everyone he had a beating. Genma, who went into the stands to get out of the way of the fight when Shukaku came out, jumped into the arena and walked over to the two. It was Naruto who broke the deadly silence. "You still alive, Gaara?" he asked, with a bit of exhaustion filling his tone. Gaara gave something close to a grunt in response. "That's good." Naruto then put his sword back into his scabbard, then knelt beside Gaara. "What did you do to me?" asked Gaara in a confused tone. "I sealed Shukaku into my runeblade when he had control of your body. I didn't want to do it that way, but the worst case scenario happened, so I had not choice," explained the young undead lord. "You no longer have to worry about him, you're free from its curse." At this Gaara's eyes widened, then gave a small smile in happiness. He was finally free of his burden. Naruto couldn't help but smile back. He freed a fellow Jinchuriki from the curse that destroyed both their lives. "Rest," he said, "you'll need it." And with that, Gaara, for the first time in years, fell into a blissful sleep. Gemna couldn't help but smile as he watched the two converse, then raised his hand. Winner: Uzumaki Naruto. Silence reigned throughout the stadium as the judge announced the winner. Everyone was needing some time to let the information sink in. Sakura was the first to regain her voice. He won. Sakura and Ino both shouted together with glee, singing in their voices. The shout echoed throughout the stadium, then others began to copy what they heard. Suddenly, as if it was arranged, everyone within the audience stood up as one, clapping wildly and shouting for Naruto's great victory. Many believed that the fight they saw would go down in history as one of the greatest matches ever to exist within the Chunin exams. Naruto looked up and was surprised by the applause he was getting, but he couldn't help but smile. He picked Gaara up and began to walk out of the stadium to take him the medical wing, but then his siblings, Temari and Kankuro, along with their sensei, Baki, appeared in front of him. "You should look after him," said Naruto as he handed Baki his student, which surprised him. Naruto then turned to the other two. "Take care of your brother, he will need you." And with that he walked away. Wait. He stopped and turned to look at Temari, who smiled with happiness at him. "Thank you for getting our brother back," she said. The undead lord nodded his head, but then he remembered something. He turned and walked towards Baki, and leant over to whisper in his ear. Baki's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. He turned to his other two students. "We are heading back to Suna," he said through gritted teeth. The two siblings knew it was best not to ask why, and merely followed him as he left. Naruto gave off an evil smirk as he watched them leave. His shoulders moved up and down slightly as he chuckled to himself, then left the stadium to meet with the others. Stadium. Cage booth. Orochimaru was close to sweating bullets. He had hoped that Gaara would have easily defeated the blonde brat, and then help him in the destruction of Konoha. But, not only did he defeat Gaara, but he also sealed the demon within him with that sword of his. One major part of his plan was now foiled because of that brat. He also saw how he could easily control the Kyuubi, or what's left of it, like a relationship between master and servant. He would now have to act fast if he was to try and succeed in his goals, or it could prove disastrous. Sarutobi couldn't help but watch with pride how Naruto dealt with the situation. Gazing over to Orochimaru, he could tell he wanted Gaara as a weapon to help in destroying the Hidden Leaf Village. But, Naruto had denied the Snake Sannin a key component of his plan. He was sure that his former student would attack soon. He just hoped that Naruto was able to deliver the goods he promised him. The will of fire is strong in him. Sarutobi turned his head to his left, to look at the new arrival, who appeared to have long white hair and was wearing a red outfit, standing with his arms folded looking to the arena with a small grin on his face. "Yes, Jiraiya," replied the elderly Hokage with a pleasing smile. "I believe he will surpass his father in more ways than one." At this the Toad Sannin laughed humorously, then turned to look at his sensei and gave a large smile. "Well, we will have to wait and see, won't we?" Outside Konoha, a small group of several hooded, robed figures walked through the gates of the hidden village. The guards were knocked out because, to them, they would only be trouble. "So this is the village?" asked one of the hooded figures. It sounded like the voice of a young female. "Yes, the one the master informed us about," replied a raspy old voice. "Ah, this is Yi Village," came the voice of a small figure of the group. "It looks like it needs a freeze over, it's so full of life." The voice sounded like death itself, cold and heartless. "Calm yourself, friends of old," came the voice of a middle-aged man. "Our master wants us to defend this village from the oncoming attack, and defend it we shall." The man then drew a large two-handed sword, which had the design of a legendary corrupted sword that was once used to turn the undead to ash and dust. But, along with the wielder, joined them for eternity. "Go forth, the battle will start soon," he shouted. And with that, the large group dispersed throughout the village. Stadium. Audience. "He did it," Ino shouted for what was like the 100th time in a row. "All right. Kiba roared in delight. I never doubted him for a second. This caused Shino to shake his head, but he had a smile on his face. Shikamaru said with a sigh, we get it already, would you stop shouting? This caused Ino to start shouting at him, much to his annoyance. Sasuke was smirking his Uchiha smirk. He would have to challenge him sometime to see how powerful he truly is. Kakashi looked like a proud sensei as he saw his student leave the arena. Guy was comically crying tears of joy, shouting about how youthful Naruto was to his opponent. Hinata was smiling as she felt like she now had the confidence to let herself grow stronger. Choji was jumping up and down with joy at the news Naruto won. Soon, footsteps could be heard, and they all turned to see Naruto walking towards them. Hey, was all he said with a casual tone, as he gave a small wave. Sakura was the first to come up to him. Baka, she shouted in fiery rage, you almost got killed. At this Naruto only chucked at his teammate antics. I'm still here aren't I? He asked with a slight sense of innocence. Sakura suddenly lost her anger and gave a small smile to her teammate. You gave us all a fright Naruto, Ino spoke from behind Sakura in a gentle tone. Kiba then rushed past the two girls and was nearly in Naruto's face. You did it man. Kiba yelled in pure joy, you beat him. At this Naruto could only chuckle at Kiba's antics. You had us all worried Naruto, said boy turned to look at who spoke next, it was Kakashi. I apologize if I did, was the reply. He then proceeded to remove his helm from his head, revealing his face to all. Everyone gasped at the sight of his face. He looked quite different from the old Naruto they knew. The girls couldn't help but blush at his look of his now matured face. Hinata was close to passing out. Many noticed his dramatic hair change, but also the fact that his whisker marks on his cheeks had disappeared from his face. Kakashi couldn't help but look shocked at the facial resemblance between him and Minato. He realized that if Naruto still had the spiky hair he used to have, then he would have looked like an exact clone of his now deceased sensei. You did it Nei-san. Came the yell of a young child. Everyone turned to look at the newcomers. They could see both Konohamaru Sarutobi and Iruka Umino moving towards them. Konohamaru had a grin that could rival Naruto's own trademark grin as he walked up to his idol. Wow, that sword and armor looks neat. Naruto couldn't help himself but smile at the young boy's attitude, it reminded him so much of his former self, then turned to Iruka, who stood next to Konohamaru. It's good to see you again sensei, the Dark Prince said in a calm but sad tone. This caused many to be taken aback by his sudden attitude change. Iruka was about to reply when an explosion shook the cage booth. Everyone turned to see white feathers fall from the sky and into the stadium. It's Genjutsu, a random shinobi of Konoha shouted. At this all Chunin and Jonin did the hand sign to dispel the illusion. Those who didn't began to fall asleep. Naruto narrowed his eyes in anger, it had begun. Several explosions shook the village as what remained of Orochimaru's forces charged in and attempted to destroy the village. Kakashi going to also dispel the just you when a purple aura enveloped the stadium. The aura burnt away the feathers and those who were close to slipping into unconsciousness suddenly fed awake. Many turned to see the hooded rotted figure have his arms extended outwards, his hands surrounded with purple flames. The flames then turned blue, and then, with a swirling motion, pointed his arms towards the cage booth. Large, sharp blocks of ice shot up from the booth's floor, the sudden motion the ice spikes caused the smoke to disperse. To everyone's horror, they could see Orochimaru, wearing the cage robes, having a standoff with Sarutobi and Jiraiya. The young Uzumaki growled in annoyance, he then turned to the hooded figure. Deal with that snake, was all the Lich King said with a dark and menacing voice. Doing a bow motion towards him, the figure then disappeared in a flash of dark blue light, then instantly reappeared next to Sarutobi. The third had a smirk on his face when he saw backup arrive, while Jiraiya looked confused at the newcomer. The hooded figure turned to them. Go. The two didn't need to be told twice, and Shunshin to escape the growled in annoyance seeing his former sensei escape, all because of this hooded figure. He was about to go after him when a large block of ice slammed into him. The force of the impact sent him flying out of the booth and into the arena. Luckily for the Sannin, he managed to recover from the hit and land on his feet. The robe figure then reappeared in the arena as well, standing 20 feet away from the S-class missing Nin. To Orochimaru's further annoyance, the figure started laughing at him. So this is the infamous Sannin I heard so much about, he spoke with a tone filled with evil and darkness, scaring many who heard. What I see before me is a fool thinking he can cheat death without paying a price. The snake Sannin growled. You make it sound like you have already cheated death. At this the figure started to laugh again. Oh dear sir, but I have, he spoke, confusing Orochimaru. Has he done what he could not? But like I said, it has a price to be paid. Suddenly the figure was enveloped in blue flames, which burned brightly and fiercely. The voice that came out sounded inhumane. And by my master's orders you will be destroyed here and now. When the flames died down, everyone could only look at the figure with both awestruck and horrored eyes. What they saw was a large skeletal undead monstrosity which was surrounded by a chilling aura. Even Orochimaru looked at this creature in horror. What is this thing? What he did know, however, was he was in deep trouble. You have no hope to defeat me, foolish mortal, for I am one of the greatest of my master's servants. I am the one who spread the plague on a country which killed millions. I am the founder of a cult that worships death. I am the Lich Lord of the Plaguelands. I am the Archlick of the Scourge. I am Kel'Thuzad. And now, foolish human, that this is your final hour.